welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Schematic. You've got me, Ann Cotter, and you have Chad Spotty as per usual. And our special guest today is Justin Kerley. Hey, Justin.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yes, welcome. So for those listening that don't know who you are, Justin, I figured I would start by giving just a brief introduction to you. Anyone who doesn't know Top Floor, really. So Justin, you are part owner of Top Floor, so you work alongside Chad. And my synopsis, I would say, of you is over the past several years, you kind of have helped to just oversee our marketing services department and really define kind of what we offer to our clients. And then your kind of skill set, in my mind at least, is really in analytics and strategy. So really overseeing kind of how digital channels all fit together to achieve a common goal. Anything else I missed? Anything you should add to that?
No, it sounds pretty good. I like that.
Justin in a nutshell.
Justin in a nutshell, yes.
I like when someone else has to do it. I hate having to introduce myself. So
I know this is something I'm going to start to do on this podcast. It's like I think it takes a little pressure off when you just introduce the person for them. So you have initiated sort of in our, I guess we're in the beginning stages of this, our sort of development of AI internally and how we're kind of incorporating that into our processes. We're still early on in that, but we thought it would be good to have you as part of this discussion for the topic of this episode, just to kind of give your thoughts and insight.
Yeah, definitely not. I guess one thing I'll add to my intro is not an expert in AI, but I have been spending a lot of time looking into it, and yeah, like Ann said, figure out how we can incorporate it into our processes and service offerings.
Yep, absolutely.
I thought you were going to say definitely not AI, as in you're not AI.
Maybe.
Are you?
I don't know. This is a philosophical question. Are we all going to turn into AI one day down the road?
Well, I know I signed a contract to co-own Top Floor with human Justin, so I don't know.
We shall see. So yes, topic today is AI and ChatGPT. So last time we talked to Scott Sawyer about AI and kind of the implications for web development. And today what I'm thinking we'll do is more kind of talking about AI and some of the practical applications that marketers in manufacturing or B2B marketers can start applying or start experimenting with. So we'll talk a little bit about just general use cases. I think the three of us can discuss the ways we've tried using AI software and tools and kind of what our experience has been, some of the limitations, and then also kind of ending things with how to basically introduce AI processes into your role, or even better yet, your company, and kind of how to go about doing that. Like you were saying, Justin, we're not the experts yet, but we've definitely spent some time playing around with these tools, and I think have some insight into what we think of it all. So,
sure.
Yeah. Okay, before we go into the topic, we like to do an icebreaker, Justin.
Okay.
I don't know if you know what this question is yet. If you've listened to previous episodes, you might. Okay, good. It's a surprise. So the question stems from basically Chad telling me all the time, and you've probably witnessed these conversations before, that I need to travel more often because I work remote and I don't have a mortgage, I don't have kids, so I should be working somewhere else, basically.
No dog to take care of. Nothing holding you down.
Nothing holding me back.
You're choosing to stay in Wisconsin. So.
Right.
Yes.
Basically, what am I doing? So the question is, where is somewhere I should travel based on your travel experiences? And you can say Spain since you were just there, but that might be a bit of a stretch for me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that depends on if you have the mastery of the language at all. I mean, I was able to kind of muddle my way through Spain, ask for certain things at restaurants, ask where the bathrooms were, that kind of stuff. So it wasn't too daunting, but otherwise I'd say, a easy English language place to go. The UK, London's a very cool city. There's a lot of areas around that that are maybe a little bit less expensive than being in the downtown area, but it's very cool. obviously the language is easy to pick up. Other than that, yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the Western United States.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in Colorado. I think the Rockies in particular are just beautiful, and being able to look out your window and see that versus seeing, I don't know, a cornfield is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that would be
Mountains.
Yeah. Yeah, because go ahead, Chad.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was having this conversation. We had some, as you guys know, but we had some people in town last week from out of town, some top floor employees for our kind of annual brewer game week-long get together. And I was talking to those guys about this same thing, about seeing mountains out your window. And when I told them, it's most of the ski hills / mountains here in Wisconsin used to be, garbage dumps that they then put grass over the top of. And they like were flabbergasted by that. I was like, no, yeah. Like that's where we ski, is the old dump sites.
Yep. It's on top of garbage.
We're part of the Wisconsin Tourism Board. If you
really yeah, it's great. Come on by.
Cornfields and garbage dumps. Come on by.
Garbage ski hills.
Oh.
Yeah. Cool. I'll note that. I've been to Colorado, but didn't stay a very long time. So I would definitely go back there, and really great hiking. I'm not much of a hiker, but I feel like when you're there, you kind of have to do it. So yeah. Cool.
Good answer.
Good answer. Yes.
Thanks. All right. Thanks for having me. I'll see you guys later.
All right. Hi, Justin.
That was it.
That's it. That's the podcast. Cool. So getting into our topic, I want to kind of set this up a little bit of why we're talking about this. So a couple months ago, like a month and a half ago, we had our in-person quarterly roundtable, which is something that we do every quarter. And we invite marketers in manufacturing, executives in manufacturing industries, basically just getting them together to talk about what's new in marketing for B2B, but marketing in manufacturing more specifically. So our last roundtable, we talked about AI kind of at a pretty high level, just going through some of the newer applications and software out there. And Justin, you gave like a 20-minute presentation, and then we broke off into kind of our roundtable discussions at our individual tables, talking to other marketers in manufacturing about how they've tried it, what challenges they're encountering, kind of what they're excited about or what they're afraid of when it comes to AI. So I think a lot of what we heard from that conversation, those conversations will kind of weave its way in this episode too, since we learned a lot about kind of how marketers in manufacturing are really thinking about this right now. But just to start, Justin, would you mind just kind of giving a high-level summary of sort of what tools and technology you talked about sort of towards the end of the presentation about AI?
Sure. Yeah, I think the biggest one that's kind of on everybody's mind is ChatGPT from OpenAI. And I think the biggest reason why that one in particular, AI has been around, or at least the current iteration of AI has been around for a number of years now, but this one's really seems to get everybody excited and a lot of people nervous. And the biggest reason why is not only is it a generative AI, which means it doesn't just pull information from a database like a Google search. If you ask Google a question, it will pull from its index and say, hey, here's something that's there. It will reference its index or its data bank and then provide you a unique answer based on what it thinks your intent is. So it's generative, but it's also natural language. So it's not like you're talking to a computer. It's kind of like you're talking to another human being. So the way that they've kind of developed this over the years is it's been given a massive data set. I think the last thing I saw, they just released GPT-4, so I don't know if the data set's changed, but I know for GPT-3, it was, I think, from 2021. So it's a little bit dated, but it was still a huge chunk of the internet, essentially, that they gave it. And then what they're doing is having people, put in prompts, rate the responses, provided feedback. So it is a trained and / supervised type AI, but that does not mean that every single request that comes through is vetted by a human being. It just means that while they're at OpenAI training ChatGPT, that they have people that are rating those responses and hopefully providing better outputs for the other users. So it is trained. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, we'll get into it, applications, but there's also a lot of shortcomings, as you can probably imagine, based off of kind of how it gets its information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Um, Sorry, were you going to say something else?
Oh no,
Oh,
I
okay.
just realized you also asked, some maybe some applications or things that we could potentially use it for.
Yeah.
Um, I think the biggest thing, I mean, especially when we talk about marketing, is content generation in some form. Again, I'll talk about that in a little bit as far as kind of how I see that being useful. Data analysis is another one. Just
Hmm.
using big data was a term that's been thrown around for years now. But truly, AI being able to process large data sets and provide you with results is a huge advantage. And then there's things like customer service
Hmm.
or even translation. Was one
Yeah.
thing that I'm seeing a lot of people utilizing it for, is just being able to take a web page and translate it into Spanish or French or German, with relative accuracy without having to pay for a translation service. Again, if you're truly serious about those areas, I do always recommend that you work with a service and some human beings that do it. But if you're on a
Hmm.
budget or you just need something quickly to put out, it can be useful for that as well.
Yeah. And
I
who
feel like
knows, really?
that's one I didn't think of was translations. That
Yeah,
kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know, I forgot about that altogether,
actually,
but
I think there was somebody
Hmm.
at the roundtable that brought it up, and I'd never even
Hmm.
thought about it. I know I've seen people talk about it. I just never really thought about it as an application for business. I thought it was more of like, 'cause I use like what's the Spanish word for X all the time in Google,
Hmm.
so
right.
that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, it doesn't really have a use, but I guess yeah, you're translating sales documents, you're translating web pages.
Yeah.
That can be really useful.
Yeah. I feel like these will only continue to get better and evolve. So, I mean, it might not be completely accurate today, but who knows what it could look like in 10 years.
Right.
Cool. Hmm. So thinking kind of back to the roundtable, I guess this is a question for everyone. So maybe I'll ask you, Chad, first. Where do you think like AI and ChatGPT could benefit marketing manufacturers the most?
Well, I think most of the, I guess, discussions that I've had with prospects and clients around kind of where it fits in or where they're using it right now, is just everyday. I'll call them mundane tasks, but everyday tasks,
Hmm.
mostly related to content, but just kind of that repetitive stuff. I mean, there was someone I was talking to last week that was using it for writing emails. So
Hmm.
coming up with, you know, just internal discussion emails or tasks for the team, that sort of stuff. I think the content side is really interesting. Certainly, I don't know, about full on just creating content and letting Chat GPT run wild, especially with a lot of our client base is highly technical. So I don't know how well that's going to work without some human element to it. But certainly,
Hmm.
maybe a blog post prompt or something along those lines, or coming up with some product page content, um, I guess website type content, not highly technical.
Hmm.
That I think definitely is a really easy, quick use case that people could jump into right away.
Yeah, I agree with the comment on the content development side. I think it could be useful to create outlines or kind of a structure to the type of content that you want to create. But I think, like you said, for a lot of our manufacturing clients, it's going to be technical information that they're looking to come up with, and that might be a challenge. But one of the things I that crossed my mind today that would be interesting to try is like inputting maybe subject matter expertise from an engineer or someone who doesn't really write like a marketer, and just say to ChatGPT like rephrase this so that it's acceptable for a blog post or something like that, like taking the technical tools or technical resources you already have and seeing if it can kind of translate or water that down a little bit. Could be another potential use case too.
So I'll let you, at least in the two times that I've kind of tried that theory. So it was two separate. One is a friend of mine, works for a large manufacturer of bathroom equipment, wash fountains, that sort of stuff. And kind of, I just plugged into ChatGPT some topics that kind of pertain to their industry and had
Hmm.
him read it. And basically, he was just saying, like, wow, this is crazy how accurate this is. And then
Yeah.
another one was an actual client of ours. I was on a call with them a couple of weeks back, probably about a month ago. And they actually work with an outside person to write blog posts for their company. And I took some of the example blog posts and just had ChatGPT kind of say, hey, write a blog post around this topic. Here's a target audience, write it in a blog type manner. And what came out kind of blew them away as far as
Mhm.
the level of, I guess, accuracy and then just readability of the actual content.
Yeah.
They were just amazed. They're like, really? Like a computer did that?
Yeah.
So I think it definitely can do the things that you're saying already. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of the human that's kind of inputting it in there. You just gotta know how to ask it in the right way or
Right.
prompt it in the right way.
Yeah.
I think one thing too, though, if you think about it, is if you're able to do that for your company, what's stopping somebody else to do it from their company? So I
Right.
think that's one challenge that we'll run into is there still needs to be some level of personalization or human interaction with that content in order to
Hmm.
kind of put your stamp on it, your brand, your expertise, those kind of things. Because otherwise, I mean, anybody could just grab a list of prompts based on some keyword research they did, or even just ask ChatGPT, like, "Hey, what are
Right.
engineers concerned about with this type of project?" And then kick out a bunch of content related to that. And anybody
Right.
can kind of do it. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
again another reason why. While it's an amazing tool, and I agree. I mean, I've been really impressed with some of the even just fully fleshed content that it develops. Is that it's not unique to me.
Right.
Anybody else could do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
think
I
the other
totally
basic
agree.
one too that we're kind of, I guess, missing is just like ultimately replacement's the right word, because Google and Bing, they all have their own kind of bots and things that they're working on as a part of this, but a replacement for search engines in the way, like, it's just changing the way people search, like at its
Hmm.
very basic, like what kind of problems can it solve, or how can our client base or types of people we work with use this, being able to just ask a question and get kind of the, I guess, walkthrough answer, or like explain this to me,
Hmm.
versus having to, like my process is Google a bunch of different things, open 100 tabs, kind of read through and form my own kind of hypothesis or idea as to how to solve the problem that I'm trying to solve, where I can just literally say, how do I do this, to Chat
Hmm.
GPT, and let it do all of that work and spit out an answer to me, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, crazy, but
Hmm. Yeah. It kind of actually, that point makes me think back to when we were talking with Scott and his kind of theory of AI and Chat GPT more so living in the background over time. Like, I think an interesting idea is like we're not necessarily going to just keep going to Chat GPT for all of our answers, but how will Chat GPT or Bard or whatever other AI tools be integrated into things that we are already using? So will it be a replacement for Google search, or will they kind of like meld together at some point? I don't know. What are
So,
your yeah.
I think my role in this podcast might just be the devil's advocate here. So, Chad, in that situation, you're looking at a Google search result, which again is, as I mentioned before, current data versus what ChatGPT in particular is working off of. But you
sure,
are also
that's
taking the
fair.
time to analyze that data. You know what you're looking for. You know specifically what your intent is. Whereas if you just let AI do that, you're kind of handing over the keys and saying like, "Hey, I want you to figure this
Mm,
out for me." So you have to be able to trust it. You have to be able to trust that it fully understands your intent and what you're specifically looking for. So again, it's just, to me, rings another alarm bell of like, hey, yes, very cool, but the human element of it, we're like, it's not AI to the point where you think of Skynet, where it's able to analyze, the human threat and eliminate it from the world. It's basically saying, okay, I think you want this, and I'm just going to give it to you, and there's no way for you to ask a follow or it to ask a follow up question.
mm-hmm.
Um, it's basically like a new employee that never asks a question, which I think we've all experienced over the years. You tell this new employee what you want from them, and they just kick something out, assuming this is what you want.
Yeah.
AI can't
Mm,
ask like, hey, did you mean this instead, or hey, do you want me to put that in alphabetical order, or hey, do you want me to? It's just, hey, I think you asked for this. Here's what you get, and that's
mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. It's like as clear as you try to make things, and even when you think like I've laid this out exactly how I want it, you still might not get the outcome that you were asking for.
exactly. You
Yeah.
might, and
Yeah.
you can always ask another prompt
Yeah.
and follow up and things like that. But
Hmm.
there is still just that interpretation, which is a
Hmm.
challenge among humans, let alone technology that isn't human.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So I
But
shouldn't ask it for like personal life advice or anything like that. Is that
I
what you're
mean,
saying?
you can, man, but
No,
it's going to
but
be biased. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, so I understand what you're saying, and I think yeah, that makes total sense. You still have to be able to analyze and don't just take it as as the truth. Certainly, since it's not currently up to date with the latest and greatest information.
I mean, that's what people have
But
been doing with Google for years, is just assuming whatever the first result is correct.
well,
So
that's exactly what I was going to say. Is we're all people are already doing that. I mean,
sure.
so there's no difference between asking Alexa, what the capital is of whatever, and taking that
Hmm.
as the truth, versus asking ChatGPT what the capital of something is and taking that as truth. I think that is something that really starts to hurt my brain. And definitely, if we think back to the roundtable, like our biggest conversation was around kind of the source of information,
Hmm.
and where is that source of truth. Where does that come from? Who's the governing body that decides what's right or what's wrong or what's correct or incorrect?
Hmm.
And that, I don't know, that's like trying to think about outer space to me. I think I said that
Yeah.
on the podcast with Scott too. It starts to, my brain
Yeah.
starts to, it can't handle it. It's too
Yeah.
much.
Goes into just like a black hole almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It just, the what if is too big. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is a good segue into kind of what we did hear from our individual tables. So that was one thing that came up a lot with the people I was talking to. I was sitting with two like content creators for one of our clients in adhesive manufacturing, and their role is basically putting out product information. They each have their own kind of verticals that they're in charge of, and they hadn't yet kind of experimented with ChatGPT because one of their biggest reservations was like, there's just no way that it's gonna get the information correct, just because it isn't technically trained. And they also mentioned too, like the source, like how do you cite ChatGPT as a source, and can you even like where is it getting its information from? So that was a big one. Was there anything else from your table, Chad, that kind of came up as like an application people were trying or had thought about trying?
Um, Trying to think. Most of it was new to the people that
Hmm.
were with us, and then I had I do another roundtable monthly with some local business owners, and kind of we started to talk about it, and they were all kind of blown away. But I actually did like a live screen share and just kind of showed them and
Yeah.
showed them what I've been using it for and how I've been asking questions and kind of using it for certain things in day to day. So I think with a lot of our clients, or certainly the people that we talk to and work with, I think it's still really, really new to them.
Hmm.
So I think it was more around just the what ifs versus the
Right.
this is how I'm using it. But yeah, if I think about just my own, use myself as an example, I already mentioned kind of emails. If there's
Hmm.
like a long company wide email that I'm going to be sending out, I'll certainly use ChatGPT just to kind of prompt me along a little bit, like give me a couple sentences about X, Y, Z. Definitely not just writing all of my emails with
Hmm.
ChatGPT. For those of you that email me on a regular basis, it is me. But it helps fill in the content, and it helps
Hmm.
also just kind of as um, like a checkpoint in some of the stuff you're writing too. Like, does
Hmm.
this make sense? Is this grammatically correct? All that sort of stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and then I think just like day to day questions, honestly, things that are coming up where I'm trying to be able to figure out how to do something. And that's where I was talking a little bit how it changes the game on how you're asking things or how we search for things. And in the past, it may be like, show me videos on how to, I don't know, fix a sink or something in my day to day life. And now my search in chat GPT is like, show me how to fix this thing that's wrong with the sink or tell me how to fix
Right.
this thing that's wrong with the sink, and
Yeah.
letting it compile the information and then show it to me.
Yeah.
um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to use it as much as possible just so I can become more familiar with it.
Hmm. Justin, have you been, obviously, I know you've been playing around with ChatGPT and Jasper and things like that. Has there been anything where, like, in your, I guess, everyday life, whether it's personal or professional where you're like, oh, I'll go to ChatGPT for this. It seems to work well.
Nothing personal yet. I never even thought to ask it how to fix a sink, but um, no, I think for professionally, I think on the content side of things, um, it's great for content ideation. I mean, you can
Hmm.
just really just say like, hey, what should I talk about with this topic, and what are some key points that people need to know about a certain topic, or even just as we're trying to connect with business owners and marketers at manufacturers, like what are some of the things that they're concerned about, and being able
Hmm.
to just get some ideas about what's out there, and then from there have it I think you mentioned before, and have it create an outline for me. So like I still want
Hmm.
to generate the content myself,
Hmm.
but I want to be able to just almost kind of like have the coloring book in front of
Right.
me, and then I just need to take my markers and fill it in. So
Hmm.
um, I've been using it for that. One thing I saw that was kind of interesting was people use it to kind of get over writer's block. I think
Oh, yeah.
it's one thing, especially if you write regularly, whether it be a blog post or professionally or a writer. I mean, I think just being able, you just get kind of stuck sometimes. How
Hmm.
do I start this? How do I phrase this? Um, and then in those cases, yeah, have it generate the full thing so you can kind of read through it and be like, okay, I get it. All right, maybe get those creative juices flowing, and then be able to take it from there. So that might work with emails too. If you don't know how to approach a difficult conversation or
Hmm.
feedback, you can have it generate it for you and be like, okay, let me tweak a couple things here and there. But um, I hadn't thought about using it for email yet either, man. I gotta get better at this.
Try it. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
think it's mainly been that, and I think even actually I joked with you guys a while back when I put that presentation together, as I was going to have
Hmm.
AI do the whole thing. I didn't, but I did have it put the kind of main talking points together, and then and then
Hmm.
I and then I fleshed it out. So um, I also tried to. I think Dolly is the name of the image generator from OpenAI. I tried using that to generate the images for the presentation, and it was horrifying. So when we talk about
That's right.
limitations, I think AI, and I've seen some really good stuff out there. So maybe there's some
Yeah.
better tools. I think Midjourney might be one that I know I see a lot of people use, where they actually are using humans and it comes up looking okay and not like a real life Picasso. Um, but yeah, that would be one limitation is image generation
Yeah.
of people in particular. I was
Yeah.
really trying. I'm trying to change prompts, and it got worse and worse. So when like, people with like 8 fingers on one hand and 2 on the other, and people with eyes that were like by the
Right.
mouth. It was
I remember
terrifying.
you sending that over to us, and I was like, "This is incredible."
Yeah.
We really, we
So
really
like if
want
I
to
want to
share
turn
some of this.
everybody off in the room, I'll
Yeah.
I'll use these images.
Oh my
Um,
goodness. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely, I feel like I haven't been super impressed with the content that it's generated for me. So like I've tried it kind of similar ways you have, Justin, for writing blogs, not necessarily writing the whole thing, but just seeing like, okay, like what can it come up with? And I feel like it's good at putting together, for lack of a better word, like the fluffy stuff, like the things that don't really need someone with any expertise to come in. But I found that like anytime I've tried to use it to write a blog, for example, I want to go in there and add like references or examples or even citing specific sources. I feel like it kind of like scratches the surface, but it doesn't really like get deep into that topic from my experience using it. But it is helpful for like idea generation or just kind of like getting the ball rolling. I found has been helpful. And I have used it to help with like coming up with questions for podcasts. So what should I ask my guests?
I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah. And personally, I've used it. I asked it the other day to come up with a 30th birthday party name for Aaron, my husband, and it was okay. It did all right. I don't give me some
Yeah.
ideas to work with, but
I think
I
one of
think
the
I
things that
even
oh, go ahead, Justin.
I was just gonna say, I think even when we were trying to think of a name for this podcast, I think I had asked it, and
yeah,
yeah,
I
it
was
was
like,
fine.
it's all right. Yeah. Were you gonna say
Yeah.
something, Chad?
Oh, I was just going to say one of the things that I used it for recently that I think I already talked to you, Ann, about was we've got a family trip coming up here in October. And it's a big, my wife's family, which is pretty large. So there's 5 families with various kids, and we're going for a week to Florida. And so I actually used it to help put together a meal plan for while we're on vacation, and then ultimately a grocery list based off of that meal plan, which is kind of cool. And it was, here's how many people we have, here's how many days we want. We want breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Kick out something for each one of those meals, and then I was able to prompt it, well, take out this type of vegetable or take this out, or there's an allergy here, and kind of put something together and send that to the family to look over. So that was kind of cool. And
Yeah.
it was just crazy because at first it was like a big long paragraph with some bullet points. And I was like, no, put it into like a schedule, do it by the day of the week, and then put the time or the meal on the left side, put the days on the top.
Hmm.
And it just did all of it, manipulated the data, and kind of came up with this really cool and easy meal plan. So
Yeah.
that was one of my
Handy.
recent yeah, very
Yeah.
handy. And the other thing I forgot too is just like day-to-day and professional life, what I've been using it for is, so I use a tool called Otter. I think it's otter.ai. Plug them,
Hmm.
even though they don't do anything for us, but to like do meeting notes. So when we're having a meeting or I'm talking to a prospect or something, that runs in the background and it transcribes the meeting. You can then take that transcript, throw it into chat gpt, tell it to summarize, everything from like summarize and put headings on the main subject points, all that sort of stuff, and it comes out with a nice meeting note rather
Yeah.
than just the full summary, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. That is handy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very handy, especially for someone like me who my meeting notes consist of, and I know Justin does this too,
Yeah.
like notebooks of scribble that I can barely read after
And
the
then
call, and then I
you
have to
gotta
go,
just,
yeah.
exactly.
And then I have to
Well,
go back and like try to remember what I said and type it up. And
mhm,
usually it's like a day later. So that's helped
mhm.
me a lot.
Yeah. It's hard to like be present in a conversation and take notes at the same time. So
Right.
I get that.
Especially most of the conversations are around, their sales type or discovery type conversations where we're talking about, their business, the problems they're trying to solve, all that sort of stuff. And you really want to be able to engage and ask questions. And it's just you. So you can't really, you don't have someone that's there taking notes. So I think that works really well.
Yeah, totally. That's a good tool. Good one. Okay, I want to talk a little bit too about some of the like we've touched on some of the challenges and things like that. I think specifically around content and like subject matter expertise. Is there any others that like came up at your table, Chad or Justin, if there's anything you can think of that we haven't talked about as far as some of the limitations, I guess, of AI and ChatGPT?
I can go first. We're both looking at each other. I think my biggest thing right now, and I don't know if it's a limitation or more of a challenge, I guess, is just knowing how to ask it the right way to get what you
Hmm.
want back out of it. And I think it, it, it comes with playing around with it, certainly, to try to trial and error. But then also, I think there's a lot of content and a lot of just different apps and plugins and things that are kind of helping with that too. So one thing that I was working on last week, Ismar and myself, Ismar's our designer here at Top Floor. We were talking about how we can use it to help out with persona journey mapping and just
Hmm.
creation of user personas. And lo and behold, there's actually a Google plugin that you can add, extension that you can add that will actually help kind of create the prompt to create a user persona. And so it gives you kind of like almost like a product builder. So it's like, okay, what are, give us the website, what's the product you're selling, give us some information about the target audience, blah, 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 fill in these like kind of like 5 fields. And then it spits out a prompt, just a big long message string. And in that prompt, it's like the exact prompt that you would want to put into chat gpt to get out what you're looking to do back out of it, which is kind of cool. So
Yeah,
it's like in between the human and chat gpt to make it easier to ask chat gpt the right way.
yeah. It's like AI for AI. Yeah.
Yeah, like ai for like
Yeah.
so there's already people that
Yeah.
are, that one is free, but there's already people
Yeah.
kind of monetizing and creating that sort of stuff, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think some other shortcomings. We've already talked about citations and things like that, but I think just where is this information coming from? How reliable is that?
Hmm.
But also, from a copyright standpoint, like I know there's been
Hmm.
some issues with um, even just websites saying like, hey, don't take this content, and they kind of just take it anyway.
Right.
And being able to attribute, because a lot of times, I mean, content is the product for a lot of people out there.
Hmm.
And if you're just kind of taking it and utilizing it for your benefit, how do you basically pay for it? How do you make
Right.
sure that they're compensated for that work? And I think with these writer strikes and Screen Actor Guild strike, a big part of it
Hmm.
is how do they control the use of AI and their likeness,
Right.
and how do they get compensated for it? And that's one of the talking points I know that's come up out of it.
Hmm.
But other than that, I think there's also just issues with bias. I think when you use a tool like ChatGPT, I think it's been out there forever, especially with social media. If the product is free, then you're the product. So when they make something like ChatGPT available to you, they're using you to train this tool.
Hmm.
So as you're putting in prompts and you're kind of based on your follow-ups to it, kind of telling it whether or not you liked what it said, you're almost creating this bias based on what you wanted that could then impact the next user that has a very similar query or a similar request. So
Yeah.
I think that bias um, is something that I know that they're very conscious of and very, very working very hard at kind of, I don't want to say eliminating, but trying to mitigate its impact on future requests and prompts.
Hmm.
But that's also something that the trainers did too. I mean, I know one of the things that people have said is sometimes it can be very verbose. Like you said, when you're putting that marketing fluff, it's kind of
Hmm.
fluffy. It's a lot of words, but not a lot of stuff being said to it.
Right.
That could just be a product of the trainer saying like, "Hey, people want 500 words in their responses," and you're like, "Well, I really just need to know like what the capital of Hungary is. I don't
Yeah.
need you to tell me the history of it. I don't need 500 words about it."
Right.
Um, so being able to understand that even some of this information might be a little bit biased or based
Hmm.
on other people's uses and other people's intent. Um, when you don't have access to that data source like you do in a Google search, you can't just click on the next link and say, okay, maybe they have what I need versus that first one. You kind of
Hmm.
just have to, okay, how do I ask this in a different way so I can get an answer that I think is going to be better?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like one of the biggest concerns that you hit on there is just like the ethics behind it all and distinguishing like, and I guess protecting like original human thought from kind of AI from I guess like taking that or regenerating it.
Yeah, I mean, at some
Yeah.
point, it's just going to be a copy of a copy of a copy.
Hmm.
That's what we brought up at the
Yeah.
roundtable. Is if AI is generating content, then other AI is using that as their data set, and then it's
Hmm.
AI using AI as its source, who then uses AI as its source, and yada yada yada.
Hmm. Right. It's all
Um,
Right.
gonna
so
sound
like,
the
where does it
same.
end?
Yep.
Terrifying.
Just a void of AI. One other thing that was talked a little bit about at my table, which we haven't really touched on yet, is like the live chat AI. So that was one thing that kind of raised concerns with my group is using AI to kind of answer or facilitate like frequently asked questions. So for a lot of our clients, I think something that's really important to a lot of their like company and brand values is the customer service. And we work with a lot of small to mid-sized manufacturers. And I think that ethics part of it is something that they're concerned about because I think they like to maintain that like person to person. You're dealing with someone real. You're dealing with an actual support agent, not AI. So I think that was one thing where they felt like I don't they didn't really see how that could, I guess help them, that it would actually probably hurt them to kind of apply something like that. It's just it lacks that human element and you kind of don't really know where the information is coming from. So,
Yeah, I mean, I
yeah.
think some of that just needs to be training,
Hmm.
training the tool, I should say,
Right.
and to be able to say, okay, you need human interaction here. Like let's
Hmm.
let's get your name, your email, phone number, something along those lines, and someone will follow up, and we'll provide them with the transcript of what you've asked for, so we can kind of hit the ground running. Um, or I think even just having it set to non-office hours. Maybe you
Hmm.
have a live chat where you could have somebody there manning that during the day, so that if a question does come in during work hours, you can have someone there. Um, but I think there is still value in being able to answer questions in off hours. I mean, I know I do
Mm-hmm.
a lot of searches and look at tools and do other research while I'm just kind of sitting, whether I'm eating dinner or I'm just
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Yeah. An idea
quote unquote
sparks in your
relaxing
head
when I'm
and
working while
Right.
relaxing.
yeah, exactly. It's
You
usually,
know,
yeah,
not being
go
able to
ahead.
talk to somebody would be frustrating, but if there's an AI that could answer or a chat that could answer a question, a simple
Mm-hmm.
one that I have that I'm not finding on the website, that would be extremely useful. And I
Mm-hmm.
would probably know, okay, this is probably not a real human answering me at 10:30 at
Yeah.
night.
But if it answers the question, doesn't matter either way, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the most frustrating things that I find is when right now, or at least in the past, when I do engage with a chatbot and I know it's not a human, rather than answering the question most of the time, it's like it just points me to an article. It's like, oh, this is the section of the website you're looking for. And it's like, no, like I've looked in that. The answer
Yeah.
is not there. Like you're not. I've already read that. It's not answering my question.
Yeah.
So a quick sidebar on that. So I did, as Ann mentioned, go to Spain, and like a genius, I didn't do any research on how I could get my cell phone to work while I was there. I just assumed it would because I'm an idiot. So then while I was there, I was trying to log in, and I got locked out because I'm sure they're like, "Hey, someone's trying to log into your account from Spain, and you don't live there." And then in order to use the chatbot, I had to log in order to access my account. So I couldn't log in. So I got caught in this loop of like, "Hey, I can't log in." And the chat was like, well, log in and you can talk to somebody. I'm like, how about you just let me talk to somebody?
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want an actual person.
Yeah.
Right.
And I couldn't get that working. So we went without cell phones while we were in Spain, which was
That's
probably
fine.
for the best.
Yeah, that's all right. It probably is for the best. You get to actually fully enjoy your time there. Um, Before we wrap up, I do want to talk a little bit about kind of adopting AI in your organization. Um, Justin, do you kind of want to just go over sort of what we're doing here at Top Floor? I know that it's, like I said before, we're very early in the process, but do you want to talk about like your ideas behind the AI committee?
Yeah. So we formed an AI committee, and we wanted it to be cross departmental. We wanted people from our accounts team, we wanted people from our marketing services, we wanted people from development, project management, marketing, all that stuff. We wanted really just to get everybody involved to be able to understand what all the different applications could be, the challenges that we're facing, how we could even make interdepartmental communication or processes easier. So really wanted to make sure it wasn't just one person leading the charge or one person responsible for figuring all these things out, because while Scott is incredibly knowledgeable on development, the marketing services side of things, he might not even think that an AI tool could use, or a use case could be for that. So we put this together, again, still in its infancy, but we're really just trying to help our team understand, some of the terms that get thrown out there,
Hmm.
some of the requests that might be coming through from clients, and how do we respond to that, and then more importantly, how do we then incorporate these and potentially make our processes more efficient by utilizing some of these tools. Now, the goal of this committee is not to just how do we get as much AI into our company as possible, but it is
Hmm.
to dive into, is there a benefit? Is there
Hmm.
something that maybe people hate doing, but we could have an AI do it, or at
Hmm.
least get them 90% of the way there?
Hmm.
Or is there a way that we can, instead of taking 5 hours on something, take 2 hours on something, because we just have to review what AI has put together, something along those lines. So
Hmm.
we're really just going through, and I think the biggest thing, as you can tell from what we've been talking about here, is just try it out. I mean, until you put a prompt into the tool, you don't know what it can do.
Hmm.
So apparently, it can make meal plans and write emails for you, which I didn't even think about doing. So, um, really, just getting out there and trying things out. So, as we
Hmm.
look at adopting these, or potentially adopting these tools or processes, we really need to make sure that what we're doing is first and foremost the same quality. The goal, again, is not to just produce the cheapest thing possible for the least amount of time. We want to make sure that the quality stays the same, but if we're able to do it in less time, or if we're able to take things off the task or off the employees that, again, don't bring job satisfaction, they dread doing, if we're able to take those things off their plate so they can focus on the things that they do enjoy doing, and that
Hmm.
drive results, we want to be able to do that as well.
Yeah. I think another part of the committee too that we'll probably eventually define is also just what our like, I guess what our code of conduct is internally when it comes to AI. So it's like
Right.
first you got to just like yeah, just dive in, experiment, see what you can do and what you're capable of. And then once we define like where it's acceptable to use it, like what is that code of conduct around that? And how do we kind of like keep tabs on that? So I think that'll be another part of the committee is figuring that out too.
Yeah. Are you allowed to write all of your emails and do all of your work with AI
No.
and book 5 hours a week and phone it in?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
Short answer,
No,
probably not.
please
Yeah,
don't.
please don't. But yeah,
No, but
I'm
yeah, I think
looking
that's a
forward to
really
that.
good point, and I think that is certainly it's important. But I think first and foremost, learning about it, getting people to use it, but then definitely coming up with your own kind of standards as to
Hmm.
what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, what's expected of people.
Yeah,
And I think it's not just top floor. I think the whole world needs to kind of figure that out
Right.
together.
Yeah. I think sometimes you just have to start where you can, and in our case, it's just in our organization. How can we make sure we're using it the right way, and being transparent too?
yeah.
So,
I liked
uh,
your approach this morning in that meeting. Chad was saying it's the Wild West right now. Just go try it out, figure out what you can do with it, and then
hmm
bring it to the table, and we'll figure out if it's something that we can repeat, that we feel good about. Um,
hmm
yeah, that we still feel again the quality is there and the results are going to be there.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think try it while you can before we start telling you what you can and can't use it for. I guess is
hmm
a different way of saying what I was trying, a less refined way of saying what I was trying to get across.
Yeah,
Yeah. You had mentioned, Justin, kind of the importance of having some representative of like each department being a part of kind of creating these definitions. Is there anything else or any other advice, I guess, you would give organizations that are looking to introduce AI into their processes, beyond, just a committee or including people from different departments? Any other thoughts there?
yeah. I mean, I think you still have to dedicate a lot of time. I mean, you got to realize this isn't just something that I can plug and play. Um, I kind of liken it to different CRMs and
Hmm.
marketing platforms where they kind of sell themselves on like, hey, just use this tool and you'll get all these sales and all these marketing leads away.
Yeah,
It's like, well, that's after you put in thousands of hours of inputs
right.
and uh, information into it. So just make sure that you know going in that if this is something that you're truly dedicated to figuring out, that you're going to have to take some time to analyze it, review the outputs, review the process itself, write that process, and then
Hmm.
test that out as well. I mean, it's a lot of work to that you do up front,
Hmm.
but you want to be able to kind of determine, okay, do I see the long term value in this, and is it going to bring some efficiencies and some savings long term? And
Hmm.
then if the answer is yes, keep going down that road. If the answer is like, hey, I don't know, then maybe cut ties and look at a different process that you could potentially use. So I think knowing the time that's going to go into it, but then also being able to kind of know when to kind of cut ties. It's like, okay, if I can save 15 minutes, but
Hmm.
it's going to take me 25 hours to develop this process to save 15 minutes, probably not worth it. But
Yeah.
if it could
Yeah.
save hours of time on a monthly basis, then that's something that might be worth taking the time to figure out.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's like training a new employee. I mean, I think we've talked about this a lot over the years. Is like, yeah, another body is great to have in there. Like, we need someone to do this work, but it's also going to take a lot of time up front to train them to make sure that
Hmm.
they know what they're doing, and that again that they're able to do what we think they should be able to do.
Hmm.
It's just they're
Yeah.
not a human being, but it's still
Yeah.
a new employee.
Yeah. I think it's a time investment, obviously, and then in some cases too, like it's not all of these tools most of these tools aren't free. So if you find something, you also have to go through that trial of paying, the monthly fee for whatever and making the case to the owners or whoever of why you think that we should try this. And then, I don't know, setting a 3 month or whatever deadline of like, is this working? Should we continue it? So there's also that kind of investment too upfront, is figuring out what software you're going to be using. And like you said, I don't think you have to incorporate new technology in every facet of your company, but there might be things that would help create efficiencies too and are worth the investment.
Yeah, I would say there's no doubt you'll be able to find at least a couple of tasks or day to day things
Hmm.
to utilize it for.
We kind of have touched on this, but just Just to round things off, what are a few simple ways someone could just get started with AI? What would you recommend?
Yeah, sign up for a free account at
Hmm.
OpenAI. Get a
Hmm.
start working with ChatGPT. Start working with their image generator, and just play around, find out
Yeah.
what it's capable of.
Hmm.
And then honestly, just you can ask the tool itself, or you can just do some Google searches. Like, hey, I'm in this industry or in this field. Like, what are people doing with this? And
Hmm.
there's no end of articles. This is a very hot topic right now. People are very interested in it, putting out a lot of content. And honestly, a fair amount of them are generated by AI. But you can go through and get some ideas. That's the biggest
Hmm.
thing. Is there's so many things that it's capable of that I'm not thinking of, Chad's not thinking of, Anne's not thinking
Right.
of, that just someone out there is just trying these things. And if they're gracious enough to post content about their process or what they were doing, you can learn from that. So just get out
Hmm.
there and do some research, but play
Yeah.
around with it yourself too.
Hmm. Anything you'd add to that, Chad?
No, I think that's Justin summed it up perfectly. I think it's just a matter of playing around with it at this point, and there's no there's no shortage of things that you can find to use it for. And there's, like Justin said, there's probably a million things that we're
Hmm.
not thinking of that other people much smarter than myself are thinking of, and they're using it to try and do things with. So
Hmm.
it's just going to get bigger and bigger, and it'll
Hmm.
find its way more and more into our everyday lives. So
Yeah.
might as well get familiar with it now before you're way out of the loop.
Yeah,
Yep.
it does not seem to be going anywhere unless there is some major intervention from government entities or something like that. This is gonna be around.
Yeah.
I think that's
It's gonna
coming,
be
but
here. Hmm.
or it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, this has all been fake. It's just a human that's answering these questions for
Yeah.
you.
This is Steve. He's been responding to everybody's prompts.
We just have a million people that have all been secretly answering questions.
Oh my God, that would be funny. Yeah, I'd say have a tab open at all times, whether it's Chat GPT or Bard or something else, because I don't know, any daily task where you're like, well, like let's just see what can Chat GPT come up with. I think just having it there ready to be used and just play around with it and see where it can create efficiencies and see what it can do.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And maybe just be open and honest when you do use it, because I don't know.
Yes,
There's some things that
transparency.
you might use it for that people might be offended.
Yeah. And people can tell too when it's something is strictly written by Chat
Yeah,
GPT or AI. So,
yeah.
keep an
Maybe
eye
don't
out.
like use it to. This is not an actual example, but don't use it to like write a birthday card for your wife or like an apology note.
Are you sure?
Sounds like it is some experience
I don't
there.
know. That was pretty
That
specific,
is
Chad.
suspiciously specific.
When's Kayla's
Uh,
birthday again?
cool. All right. Well, thank you both for joining for another episode of the Marketing Schematic. I also want to note before we wrap up that if you're listening to this before August 23rd, Justin and I are hosting a virtual workshop that you can register for on topfloortech.com, where we'll be talking more about AI definitions and doing a sort of prompt writing workshop of kind of how to generate the information or feedback from AI that you're looking for. Yeah,
That's going to be
so
awesome. I'm excited
yeah,
for that.
I am excited for that too. But yeah, that's all we have. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks,
All
Justin.
right,
Thank you.
bye.